All right, so today we're going to be diving into some seriously cool tech. We're talking voice AI and a company called SoundHound AI that's been making some pretty big waves recently.
Yeah, imagine ordering a Chipotle burrito with just your voice, no screens, no buttons, just pure AI magic.
Pretty slick, right?
Yeah, and it seems like investors agree. SoundHound's stock has skyrocketed. I think it's like 400% in just a couple of months.
400%.
Yeah. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into a Motley Fool analysis today to see if this company is truly the future of voice AI or if it's all just hype.
Okay, so what's fueling this massive stock surge? Is SoundHound really on to something that big? What's going on?
Well, they've definitely secured some impressive wins recently, particularly in the fast food and automotive industries.
Like Chipotle.
Yeah, exactly. Like you mentioned, Chipotle is now using their tech for voice ordering, and you've got several car manufacturers integrating SoundHound's voice AI into their vehicles.
Very cool, very cool. So I'm curious, with so many companies jumping on the AI bandwagon these days, what's giving SoundHound a competitive edge? What do they have that others don't?
What's fascinating is that SoundHound has been in the voice AI game since back in 2005, long before it became the hot topic it is today. And they have this proprietary AI model called Polaris, which has been trained on 2 decades of voice interaction data.
2 decades. That's a lot of data.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for their technology? How does it compare to all of these newer AI models everyone's talking about?
Well, think of Polaris as like a brain that has been specifically trained for understanding and responding to human speech.
Okay.
And all those years of data mean Polaris can understand really nuanced commands and accents that other general AI models might struggle with.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a huge advantage, especially in really complex situations, like voice-controlled cars, for example.
That's really cool. So SoundHound isn't just using off-the-shelf AI. They've built their own specialized tool. Okay, that makes sense why they're attracting so much attention. But the Motley Fool analysis we're looking at seems a bit hesitant, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
What are their concerns? What are they worried about?
Well, the Motley Fool points out that SoundHound's current market cap is $9 billion.
$9 billion, wow.
Which translates to a price of 45 times their projected 2025 sales.
45 times.
Which is very high, even considering their projected growth.
45 times their projected sales. That does seem a bit steep. Are they suggesting that this stock surge might be driven by something other than SoundHound's performance?
Yeah, they do raise the possibility that some of this frenzy could be due to short sellers covering their positions, which could artificially inflate the stock price. Plus, we have to consider the potential for major tech companies like Google and Amazon to enter the voice AI market, more aggressively.
That's a good point. Even with a head start and their own specialized technology, how would SoundHound stand up against the resources of giants like Google and Amazon?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's something that the Motley Fool is really urging investors to consider carefully.
Okay, so while SoundHound is definitely doing something pretty interesting, the Motley Fool isn't completely sold on the current valuation. They're essentially saying, proceed with caution, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're encouraging investors to look beyond the hype and really consider the long-term viability of their business model.
Okay, so we've got this exciting company pushing the boundaries of voice AI, but with a potentially inflated stock price and the threat of competition from those tech giants looming over them. What does this all mean for our listeners out there who might be interested in investing or just trying to understand this whole voice AI landscape?
That's where we need to kind of shift gears and look at the bigger picture. So forget about SoundHound's stock for a minute and just consider the potential of voice AI itself.
Okay.
We're talking about a technology that could completely revolutionize how we interact with the world around us.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to dig into next. This isn't just about ordering burritos with your voice. It's about a potential paradigm shift in how we interact with technology as a whole.
Exactly. So let's take a step back from the SoundHound hype for a second and explore the broader implications of voice AI for various industries and our lives in general.
All right, love it. Let's do it. Okay, so we've established voice AI has this huge potential to be a game changer, really shake things up.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like in practice? I mean, what are some real-world examples we can wrap our heads around beyond just, ordering fast food with our voices?
Well, think about healthcare for a second. Doctors could use voice commands to access patient records, input notes, even control medical devices during procedures, all while keeping their hands free.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a really compelling example. And it makes perfect sense for situations where sterility and efficiency are so important.
Right.
What about other fields? Where else are we seeing this kind of potential?
Manufacturing is another one that's ripe for disruption.
Oh, okay.
Workers on a production line could control machinery with their voice, which could improve both safety and efficiency.
That's interesting. And, I was thinking about education, too. Voice AI could be transformative in education, right? Students could interact with learning platforms in a completely new way. It could make learning more engaging, more personalized.
Exactly. And those are just a few. I mean, we haven't even touched on the potential for voice AI in areas like customer service, entertainment, even in creative fields.
Yeah. It seems like the possibilities really are almost limitless. But let's bring this back to SoundHound for a moment. They're clearly positioning themselves as a leader in all of this. But as we discussed, they do face some significant challenges. So what does their potential success or failure, what does that mean for the future of voice AI as a whole?
That's a great question. And I think, SoundHound's story is kind of a microcosm of the larger trends we're seeing in voice AI. So we've got this super innovative company with this deep expertise in this area, but they're also facing really intense competition and in a market that's still relatively in its early stages.
Right. So even if SoundHound doesn't become like the dominant player in all of this, the advancements that they're making are still contributing to the overall development of the technology itself.
Absolutely. Their work with Polaris is definitely pushing the boundaries of what's possible with voice AI.
Regardless of who ultimately, quote unquote, wins in the market.
Right.
So this raises a really important question for you, the listener. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are you excited about the possibilities of voice AI, or do you have concerns about, some of the implications?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. And while you're pondering that, let's shift gears again. And this time we'll explore another really fascinating aspect of this whole voice AI conversation, the ethical considerations. Because there are some...
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's get into that. All right, so we're venturing into some pretty fascinating territory here. Voice AI that can understand not just the words we say, but also the emotions behind them.
It really is something else, and the tech is advancing incredibly fast. We're talking about AI that can analyze your tone of voice, your cadence, even subtle pauses and inflections to figure out your emotional state.
Okay, so imagine this. You're calling customer service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the AI on the other end can tell you're getting frustrated. It could automatically connect you to a human representative, maybe even before things escalate.
Exactly. Or think about, smart homes. What if your house could actually sense if you were feeling stressed? It could adjust the lighting, maybe play some calming music, almost like having an empathetic AI companion.
That's pretty wild. It's cool. But I have to admit, it also makes me a bit uneasy. If AI can read our emotions that accurately, what does that mean for privacy? Could this data be used in ways we haven't even thought of? Like maybe for targeted advertising or even manipulation?
Those are all valid concerns. This is where the ethical considerations we touched on earlier become even more important. As voice AI gets better at understanding our emotions, it's absolutely crucial that we have safeguards in place to protect our privacy and make sure that this data isn't misused.
Absolutely. We need to be thinking about these things now, not after it's too late. It's like we're standing at a crossroads with voice AI. On one hand, there's incredible potential for good, improving healthcare, making technology more accessible, just generally improving our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's this darker side, this potential for invasion of privacy and even manipulation if the technology falls into the wrong hands.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a classic dilemma, isn't it, with any powerful technology? How do you strike that balance, the potential benefits versus the potential risks? And there's not always an easy answer. It requires a lot of open discussion, careful regulation, and a real commitment to ethical development.
So to our listeners out there, as you continue to learn about voice AI and follow its evolution, don't just focus on the cool new features and the exciting possibilities. Ask yourself the tough questions too. What are the potential downsides here? What are the ethical considerations? And, what role do you want to play in shaping how this technology is developed and used?
It's not set in stone, the future of voice AI. It's being shaped right now by the choices we all make, the conversations we have, the actions that we take.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. It's exciting and a little bit scary, and definitely something we all need to be aware of moving forward.
I couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of voice AI and SoundHound. Hopefully it's given everyone out there a lot to think about.
Absolutely. To all of our listeners out there, we really encourage you to keep learning about this, stay curious, and most importantly, stay engaged in this conversation about how technology is shaping our world. Until next time, keep exploring.